The rain fell hard over Parliament Hill, drenching the grey stones like tears from a country watching its political heart unravel. Inside the chamber, silence had fallen, not the dignified kind reserved for moments of remembrance, but the eerie hush of something breaking. The Liberal Party of Canada, once the bastion of progressive hope and national unity, was coming apart at the seams. Asterisk it started with a whisper. Asterisk to senators, long seen as loyalists, stood without ceremony during a late-night vote on climate legislation and quietly handed in their resignations. Their words, barely audible over the rattle of the storm outside, echoed like thunder across the political landscape. We can no longer serve a party that has lost its compass. By morning, the news had spread like wildfire. Two became four became seven. A political exodus had begun. Asterisk at the center of it all was Mark Carney, economist, former governor of the Bank of Canada, and now the embattled leader of the Liberal Party. He had swept into leadership on a wave of excitement and optimism, hailed as the technocrat who could heal divisions and return dignity to governance. But behind closed doors, the pressure had mounted. The economy was strained. Housing was unattainable for millions. And a new wave of conservative populism was rising like a tide. No one could seem to hold back. Asterisk in a press conference meant to calm nerves and reassure the public. Carney stepped to the podium, pale and sleepless. Cameras rolled. Microphones buzzed. And then it happened. Asterisk, his voice cracked. Asterisk, I have tried, he began. Eyes locked not on the crowd but on something far away. I have tried to lead with integrity, with logic, with compassion. But leadership is not about perfection. It's about listening. And I'll asterisk, he faltered. A pause too long. Reporters leaned forward. Asterisk, I don't know if I've done enough. Asterisk, the room froze. Not because of what he said, but because of the man who said it. For a leader who had built a career on numbers, structure, and calm, to suddenly unravel on live television was a revelation. It wasn't a meltdown in the dramatic sense, it was something deeper. A moment of soul-bearing vulnerability. In that second, Carney wasn't a politician. He was just a man trying to hold a broken thing together. Asterisk, social media exploded. The clip of his speech spread across the country in hours. Some mocked him, others empathized. And for the first time in a long time, Canadians were not debating policy, they were debating humanity. Asterisk, asterisk, among those watching from the sidelines was Senator Asha Patel. She had been one of the first to defect, leaving quietly, but not without pain. She had spent 20 years in the party, crafting bills to protect Indigenous land rights and leading education reform. But in recent years, she felt and heard drowned out by an elite echo chamber, more interested in optics than outcomes. Asterisk still. Seeing Carney's breakdown stirred something in her. Asterisk, she remembered the man who had called her personally when her husband passed away, who had fought behind the scenes to push through her child tax reform bill when others laughed it off. That man wasn't a headline or a soundbite. He was real, flawed, but sincere. Asterisk, Asha picked up her phone. Asterisk, she called Carney not as a senator, not as an opponent, but as a friend. You said you didn't know if you'd done enough, she told him. But maybe you've done something. More important, maybe, for the first time, you showed people you're one of them. Asterisk, Carney didn't respond right away, but he didn't hang up either. Asterisk, asterisk, the days that followed were chaos. Protests erupted in Montreal and Vancouver, demanding accountability. Poll numbers dropped. The media circled like vultures. The Conservative Party began preparing for a snap election, believing the Liberals too weak to survive. Asterisk, but then, something unexpected happened. Asterisk, former Liberal MPs who had quietly resigned began speaking out, not to condemn Carney, but to support him. They shared stories of late-night phone calls, quiet support for local causes, and unseen acts of leadership that had gone unnoticed by the public. For every senator who had defected, there was another who reconsidered. Something was shifting, not in politics, but in the people. Asterisk, grassroots Liberals, long frustrated with the top-down control of the party, began organizing town halls, not orchestrated by the party HQ, but by communities. We can't fix Ottawa from Ottawa, one organizer said, but maybe we can rebuild from here. Carney took notice. He visited a small town in New Brunswick that had recently lost its local mill. Not with reporters or staff, but alone. He sat with the mayor, a single mother who had seen half her town laid off. She didn't care about poll numbers or policy jargon. She wanted to know if anyone in Ottawa still gave a damn. And Carney listened. He didn't promise miracles. He didn't spin blame. He just listened. And then he returned the next week with a regional jobs initiative crafted by local leaders. Not economists in glass towers. Words spread. Slowly. The narrative shifted from free fall to reckoning. Then from reckoning to renewal. In the House of Commons weeks later, Carney stood again to speak, this time not as a broken man, but as a leader tempered by fire. We lost our way. I won't pretend we didn't, he said. We chased polls instead of people. We silenced dissent to maintain an illusion of unity. But I've learned that strength isn't in appearances. It's in the courage to admit you were wrong and still choose to stand back up. Applause came. First from his own benches, then unexpectedly from independents. Even one or two from the opposition. Carney finished. We may not win the next election, but we're going to earn back something far more important: trust. The Liberal Party didn't magically return to power overnight. It would take years to rebuild what had been lost. But the fall had forced a reckoning, and with it, a return to purpose. As for Carney, he will later say that his moment of public vulnerability wasn't a meltdown. It was a release, a point where pretense gave way to truth, and it allowed others to be honest too.